2021 budget proposal was presented on the 6th of November 2020 by our Minister of Finance. There are a few changes regarding the individual tax, either for residents or non-residents of this country, Malaysia. Based on the announcement given by our Minister of Finance, one of the changes that will be implemented from the 2021 budget is there will be a reduction in individual income tax rate, whereby starting from the year of assessment 2021, the income tax rate for resident individuals will be reduced by 1% for the chargeable income band of 50,001 ringgit to 70,000 ringgit. The reduction in the income tax rate will result in a tax saving of 200 ringgit for those in the chargeable income band above 5,001 ringgit. However, the non-residents individuals' income tax rate will remain constant at 30%. Other than that, there will also be a reduction in the contribution to Employees Provident Fund (EPF). As we know, Malaysian employees are required to make contribution from their monthly salary to the Employees Provident Fund (EPF). From the proposal, the rate of reduction from the salary to the Employees Provident Fund (EPF) will be reduced from 11% to only 9%. This will be implemented from the month of January 2021 until the end of this year, which is in the month of December 2021. This will only be implemented within this 12 months period. The reduction of EPF rate is to ensure that Malaysian residents can increase their take-home money. Next, there will also be an increase in the limit of income tax exemption on the compensation for loss of employment. Previously, for the year 2020, the income tax exemption for compensation for loss of employment with the same employer for all companies within the same group is 10,000 ringgit only for each of the full year of service. After the announcement of the 2021 budget, there will be an additional sum of 10,000 ringgit for each year full of service for the exemption of the compensation of loss of employment. This will be implemented for individuals that lose their job or on or after 1 January 2021 until 31st December 2021. The government increased the amount of exemption for tax so that individuals who had lost their jobs during the COVID-19 crisis can be assisted. Lastly, there will also be an extension of period for contribution to private retirement scheme (PRS) and net savings in the National Education Savings Scheme (SSPN). In order to encourage the taxpayers to continue contributing to these schemes for the betterment of their future retirement and their children's education purposes, it is proposed that the period of claiming relief on contribution made to private retirement scheme (PRS) and net savings in National Education Savings Scheme (SSPN) will be extended. For the contribution to the private retirement scheme (PRS), there will be an amount of 3,000 ringgit for the tax relief, where the current period for the tax relief is up to the year assessment 2021, but then will be extended until the year end of 2025. For the net savings in the National Education Savings Scheme (SSPN), the tax relief amount of 8,000 ringgit that originally for the period up until the year of 2020, but will be extended to the year 2022. So that's all regarding the 2021 budget. That is related to the individual tax. Next, my friends will continue to present on the business tax and also the challenge in implementing the 2021 budget. That's all. Thank you.
Now, I would like to continue with my point, which is tax measures for businesses. The Malaysian government has issued several tax measures in its national budget that will impact businesses in 2021. These tax measures are related to the extension of incentives introduced last year to mitigate the economic impact which is caused by the pandemic. Malaysia's government had issued a variety of tax measures in its latest national budget that will impact businesses in 2021. More than 322 billion ringgit has been allocated for budget 2021, or 20% of its GDP, which is the largest allocation in Malaysia's history. The tax measures in the budget relates to the extension of incentives such as tax holidays provided in the stimulus package introduced throughout 2020. For example, the 2020 economic stimulus package Prihatin, Prihatin for SMEs, and Penjana. In January 2021, the government issued the PERMI stimulus package, which was valued at US 3.6 billion. Malaysia's GDP is expected to grow between 6.5 and 7.5% in 2021, after the contraction of the 4.5% in 2020, but this is all depending on how the government successfully contains the COVID-19 virus as well as sustain external demands. What are the available tax incentives for business? Firstly, tax incentives which can attract foreign manufacturers. Under the Penjana stimulus package, foreign companies in the manufacturing sector who are looking to relocate to Malaysia were given incentives which are available up to December 31, 2021. These incentives includes a 0% tax rate for 10 years for companies with investments in fixed assets valued in between 300 million to 500 million ringgit. Next, a 0% tax rate for 15 years for companies with investments in fixed assets valued at over 500 million ringgit. And lastly, a 100% investment tax allowance for a company with existing operations in Malaysia that will relocate their overseas facilities into the country. Next incentives is tax incentives for pharmaceutical manufacturers. To encourage manufacturers of pharmaceutical products to invest in Malaysia, the government has offered an income tax rate between 0 to 10% for the first 10 years of operations, with a 10% tax rate for the next 10 years. After that, there is also equity crowdfunding to encourage more investors in to invest in equity funding, or ECF as we call it. The government has offered income tax exemption on 50% of the investment amount, subject to the following examples. The amount exempted from tax is limited to 50,000 ringgit for each year of assessment. Next, the deductible amount is restricted to 10% of aggregate income for each year of assessment. Furthermore, the Securities Commissions of Malaysia (SC) must verify eligible investors and investee companies. And lastly, the investor must not have a family relationship with the investee company. These are some criteria that one must follow to invest in equity crowdfunding. Next is export of private healthcare services. Private healthcare companies are currently eligible for income tax exemptions for income derived by providing healthcare services to either foreign patients in Malaysia or from Malaysia. These incentives has been extended until the end of 2022. The tax exemption is equivalent to 100% of the value of increased export services to be set off against 70% of statutory income. And for my last point is the extension of tax incentives in the investment corridors. The government has extended the tax incentives for businesses located in several of the country's investment corridors. The tax incentives periods for the East Economic Region investment corridor has been extended until 2022. The core objective of the East Economic Region is to boost the development and attract more investors to invest in a few sectors such as oil and gas, tourism, manufacturing, human resource development, and agribusinesses. Next, we will continue by my friend, I'm Michael, and also Uma Muhtar. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Mahikal bin Rushaidi, and today I'm going to talk about challenges in implementing tax measures for individuals. Okay, as mentioned before, according to Budget 2021 review of income tax rate for individuals, the tax rate is to be reduced by 1% for chargeable income, band of MYR 50,000 to MYR 70,000. The income tax exemption on compensation for loss of employment to be increased from MYR 10,000 to MYR 20,000 for each full year of service. Lastly, tax incentive for returning expert program REP is to be extended for another 3 years. It will be revised as follows: flat rate of 15% of employment income for a period of 5 consecutive years, and exemption of import duty and excise duty of purchase of CBU vehicle, or excise duty exemption of for purchase of a CKD vehicle. Total duty exemption limited up to MYR 100,000. As the trend goes on, we can see all the tax rate is decreased. So what are the challenges in implementing tax measures? Well, from the point of view of taxpayers, it benefits them. So let's change our point of view a little and look for the government point of view. The government will face challenges in implementing these tax measures. Why are government being the one who will face the challenges? Okay, as we learn in Economy and Taxation 1, most government revenue come from taxes. By lowering the tax rate, this also means that the government will bear the consequences as their income is reduced. Next, if the tax rate is low, people will have more money in their hand and will cause the person to spend their money in many ways, such as shopping or eat in fancy restaurant. Not only one individual, but many people will tend to spend their money more than usual. This will cause the market price to increase as the demand increase, and this will also cause the inflation to our country. That's all.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad bin Nazar. As you all know, this video is almost over because we are like to finish all the presentation. Also, I'm taking the last part to present regarding this budget 2021. Not wasting time, right now I will talk about what are the challenges in implementing the measure in business. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Malaysian government has announced stimulus package of more than RM 300 billion to date. Some reports indicate that USD 17 trillion of stimulus package have been announced by government globally. This equal to whopping 20% of global GDP. We expect budget will continue to roll out stimulus measures focused on addressing the now key issue of saving lives and livelihoods in the short term and positioning ourselves for the next recovery in the medium and longer term. This is the challenges in implementing the measure for the upcoming. It will be a tough budget because the challenges as it has to balance the taking care of the rakyat, especially the vulnerable, creating and protecting jobs and livelihoods, paving the way for sustainable growth and positioning during the recovery phase. At the same time, we are looking at 5.8% to 6% budget deficit and debt level above the statutory limit of 60%. Therefore, we also expect some immediate measures to increase the tax revenue of the country, including changes to existing tax provision to broaden the tax base and tighten gaps. Eventually, if not removing an effective tax incentive and exemption also bring huge challenges to implement the measure in business due to the sizable loss of revenue when it comes to tax holiday and other incentives that either fail to attract the right investment or are provided to companies that would have made the investment even in the absence of such incentive. Hence, ineffective or outdated incentive should be identified and withdrawn. And that's all from us. Thank you.